In a situation where you find that a look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is Daybreak on Trust TV. Time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak, beginning with the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story here says President Tinubu unveils 8-point agenda. It has the riders that says he warns ministers against underperformance. We inherited very bad economy, says Waledu. You also have find short-term solutions to fuel subsidy removal, forex crisis, expert tells FG. Now, above the lead story, you have Cameroon notified us 7 days after opening Lagdo Dam. That's according to the federal government. We just had that point re-echoed by the DG of the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency. Also, 250 billion naira gas expansion fund dormant for 4 years, according to the federal government. You have PSC retires 4 DIGs for not leaving after Egbetokun's appointment on page 5. Other stories, Tribunal, Kano APC declares fasting, prayers 48 hours after NMPPs. You have that on page 10. Residents invade Bielsa warehouse, loot spoiled 2022 palliatives on page 16. The Tinubu bars officials without specific roles from attending Onga. So these are the main stories on the Daily Trust front page today.
Okay, let's also look at the Punch newspaper. Let's start with the lead story that says FEC unfolds a 3-year economic revival plan. Tinubu warns ministers. The writers attached to the story is ministers to achieve first phase of Tinubu's 8-point agenda within 3 years. The second writer says Tinubu inherited bad economy, youth unemployment unacceptable. That's coming from the minister. To get more details of this lead story in the Punch this morning, page 2 has more of the details. And above the lead story, we have Cameroon Dam flood to hit states in 7 days. That's coming from the federal government. There, page 7 has more details. And then MBS kicks as ex-statistician general faults new employment data. Page 17 also has that. And then extractive firms underpaid $10 billion in taxes and royalties. That's coming from Nati there. Now let's take a look at other stories on the bottom of the strip. Abiodun diverted Ogun local government's allocations, 10.8 billion naira bailout, cancel boss alleges. Page 7 has more details, and a very sad one here says tenant bite off neighbor's ear over electricity bill. Page 4 has that very story. And then NLC, FMBN clash over 238 billion naira National Housing Fund. Page 18 has that story, and that's about the stories you can see in front of the Punch newspaper for this morning.
All right. Now you have other stories on the Nation newspaper rather. Where you have the lead story says Tinubu targets economic revival, 50 million jobs in 3 years. Perform or be fired. Presidency warns ministers. Also, above the masthead, Citigroup predicts rise in foreign investment. Obaseki fires Shuaibu's media aid as rift widens. You also have why we dropped Sanwo-Olu's nominees by Speaker. Federal government stops frivolous official trips in cost-saving measure. Then Cameroon's Lagdo Dam opening sparks fear in 13 flood-prone states. Well, these are the main stories on the Nation front page.
So let's take a look at this day. Above the masthead, we're in big mess. Shatima declares on economy, challenges presidential committee on fiscal policy and tax reforms. That story started on front page, but you continue reading on page 10. And then we have Falana to federal government. It is not for market forces, IMF and World Bank to fix forex rate. Page 6 has that, and the lead story here says, at meeting FEC meeting, Tinubu charges ministers to revive nation's ailing economy. Writers attached to that lead story says, and unemployment acceptably high, and then bars uninvited government officials from attending UNGA in the United States. And Edun says, we inherited bad economy. All of that you read on page 10, and then a pictorial of some of the people who attended the FEC meeting. You can see the Lagos State government and other officials there. And then we have this one that talks about Obaseki. Shoaibu's rift gets messier as governor disbands deputies' immediate coup. Page 5 has that story. Then Nigeria gradually grinding to halt under Tinubu, PDP alleges. And the strategic meeting on project financing. Okay, there you have the pictorials there. That's about the news you can find on the front page of this day newspaper for today.
And on the Daily Sun newspaper, the lead story, Tinubu reads Riot Act to ministers. I will not spare incompetent officials, vows President. Nigeria grinding to halt under you, says PDP. You also have FG Prune's list of delegation to UNGA, that's the United Nations General Assembly, orders non-inclusion of officials without role. All right, you also have FG evacuates 298 Nigerian irregular migrants freed from Libyan detention. So these are the main stories here on Daily Sun.
So the lead story we'll take from The Guardian right now. The Guardian's lead story says, unwidely appointments of SSAs, SAs, PAs deplete lean resources in poor states. That story is on page 6, but very interesting pictorial here about, the wife of SA on divorcee Bauchi, a lot of it. You can take a look at it when you grab a copy. Then just below that, we have Tinubu gives ministers marching order to revive economy. Page 6 has that. And then not yet Uhuru for creative industry financing. That's on news analysis in The Guardian. Page 4 commentates that story. Let's take a look at the top of the newspaper. We have the story that says Lagos Assembly insists on rejection of 17 commissioner nominees. That's on page 7. You might want to find out why. Then OAU bans hugging, sitting on laps, skimpy dresses, tattoos, others on campus. Interesting. Page 7 has that, and registrars indicted over unclaimed dividends as figure rises by 94% in 24 years. Okay, that's on the business page there on page 15, and that's so much we can take on the front page of The Guardian for this morning.
All right, and we are now going to take a look at the daily Business Day newspaper, where you have the lead story there talking about foreign inflow into stocks falls to pre-Tinubu levels. More equities offloaded by foreign investors. You have also new job data suggests Nigeria is a hustle economy. Well, whatever that means, you find the details on the Business Day newspaper. Nigeria being a hustle economy. AI strategy, Nigeria in global hunt for its best minds. You have rising inflation puts tickets prices on back foot. Telcos prices on back foot. How to close gap between official and parallel forex markets. That's a commentary there on the Business Day newspaper. So these are the main stories on the front page of the paper this morning.
All right, we'll take a look at the Daily Times. The Daily Times has the lead story saying Deputy Governor and Governor's security in public hot exchange of words. All right, you can look that up. We also have Musawa, all eyes on NYSC and Justice Ministry. Page 16 has that on the Daily Times newspaper. And then we have FCT demolishes multi-million naira duplex. You want to find out what area? All right, so you have more details on page 3 this morning in the Daily Times newspaper. We also have subsidy removal. Hungry buyers or residents loot government's warehouse for foodstuff. Page 2 has that, and then the last story will be taken from the front page. Says 60,000 innocent lives lost in Heather's farmers' clashes. That's coming from the Reps speaker. That story started on the front page, and then you read further in the Daily Times newspaper. And that's the much we can take this morning.
All right.
For the national dailies that we have right now in the studio.
Okay. So let's get some perspectives to some of the stories that we have this morning. We have joining us via Zoom, Daily Trust Director, Daily Trust Foundation, Dr. Theophilus Abba, who joins us now virtually for some perspectives. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor. Today you are joining us virtual. We miss your presence here, though.
Yes. Thank you very much. The technology is helping us, to be able to, to link up, even though I'm not a person, but I'm observing what you have been reading out. Okay. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Well, let's start with one of the stories that is almost on all the papers. Yesterday, we saw the presidential spokesperson, Majuri Ngelale, made a statement about trimming down the number of government officials heading for the United Nations General Assembly. He said there's a ban now by the government to reduce the number. The U.S. Embassy has also will be guided on, who to issue visa to and who not to. I mean, this is the way to go, isn't it? What do you make of it?
Well, that is the right step to take. Because usually many government officials want to go to the UN General Assembly, not because they will contribute to any debate, but because of the obstacle, and at this time, we know that we need all the money, all the dollars that we have, to boost the economy. If you have a very large delegation to the UN General Assembly, what we witness is a lot of dollars going to them as allowances. If they stay there for 4 days, 1 week, also would their obstacle be on the increase. So I think it's the right step, that the president is taking. To say only those who have roles to play, only those who are presenting papers, only those who are going to attend various committee meetings are the ones who should be there. In the past, some persons who say they are aides, they are, I don't know, maybe they look for different excuses. Okay, I take care of the wardrobe of the minister's wife. I taste the food before he. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
We can hear you.
So, and it's good that we are not having those who don't have roles to play, going. Not going to the UN General Assembly. It's a waste of resources. And most times, the overhead in the ministries, department agencies, it's so much that the money that goes there could be used to do other things to boost the economy.
Okay, let's take a look at this headline that talks about residents invading Bielsa warehouse and looting, the palliative that was housed there before onward distribution. What can you make of this kind of behavior from citizens?
Well, it's not good for Nigerians to take the law into their hands, but I would think that we've been talking about palliatives in the last, 3 months, since May 29, talking about palliatives, and I don't think many Nigerians have seen this palliative being distributed. Only few states. I know a state like Borno, has been doing a lot of distribution of palliatives, going from one right to the other. But if Nigerians are aware that you have these food items, all these palliatives in a warehouse, and they don't see it being distributed, don't see them being distributed, they'll be tempted to do what happened in Bayelsa. I'm not supporting it. I don't think it's the right thing to do, to invade the warehouse and cut away everything that is there, because there has to be a method of distribution. What they have done has already obstructed the process of distributing the palliative. But then we advise state governors that when they receive.
Okay.
I think
So there's a glitch there now.
In some kind of technical
Yes.
glitch.
So while we try to get back Dr. Theophilus to join us also, Mardia, also of concern is the fact that these palliatives now that have been looted by the residents is expired, and I would like to get the thought of Doctor on this. Doctor, these palliatives that we hear of in Bayelsa State is expired, from the report that we're getting, and this is something from 2022. So what does this say about government officials responsible for the distribution of these palliatives, and how this has caused the mistrust and the lack of confidence on the government officials to do right by citizens in this regard?
Okay, I think we lost Doctor again, but having to hear this about expired food being put in the warehouse, and it's not far-fetched from what happened during the COVID-19. Some of the warehouses that were looted were actually filled with foods that, were expired foods. And you begin to ask, why do we have the government putting food in the food food basin or food banks, and leaving it there, not attending to it, or even distributing it to the poor and vulnerable in the society, and just leaving it there? So at the end of the day, we're eating something that is detrimental to our health.
I mean, even more worrisome now is the fact that if these residents or indigents are this desperate to, as far as go to the point of invading and looting these food items, then would they be careful enough to even look at the items and be sure that it's good for consumption before they go ahead to consume?
I think a lot of Nigerians...
and what is going to happen if they do consume these food items?
Because of the hardship being faced by a lot of Nigerians now, a lot of people don't even care if food expires or not, as long as it's being cooked and they can actually feed on something like that. Yeah. So, but it's not really, it doesn't really speak well of how these things are being kept. I know that, it's not good for you to break into this warehouse, but the government has to do better. Okay. If you're putting food in the bank, we should make sure that it's been distributed at the right time.
I understand we have Dr. Theophilus back now. Doctor, if you can hear me. Yeah, so this is spoiled food from 2022, this palliative.
That way is making it
it's spoiled. I mean, that's what the report is saying. What does this say really about, the role of government officials in, bringing about this trust deficit in terms of distribution of palliatives? It appears we've lost Dr. Hello? Yes. Can you hear me, Doctor?
Hello?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please. Yes, we can hear you, Doctor. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead, please. The palliative that was looted is spoiled. It's from 2022. So the dangers of this, should the government now be taking responsibility for the trust deficit created by the lack of transparency and accountability in the distribution of the palliatives, leading to this kind of looting?
Well, it's quite unfortunate because the government ought to have distributed these items before now. And you see, when government does not do what it ought to do, at times some of these things are just mere common sense. If you say, okay, you are observing some rules, or you are trying to put some things in order and it's taking too long, to the point that those items are already expired. It's really unfortunate. And so they have to take responsibility. If Nigerians who are ignorant go ahead to consume those food items and there is any side effect, the government must take responsibility. They have to be blamed. You know, and you see, these things have happened again and again. During the COVID-19 pandemic, you know, government delayed in distributing palliatives, and Nigerians had to enter into the warehouse from state to state to loot. Now, the current leadership also have learned from that experience that, look, you cannot keep these things when people are hungry. You know, maybe because they have access to resources, to government resources, they can buy food item at whatever price. They don't know that Nigerians are actually suffering. Many Nigerians, in their millions, they are suffering with access to food. Okay. You know,
all right, so let's move away from this story. A number of stories really to touch on this morning on the review. We have another story here talking about job racketeering. It says reps threaten to halt waivers to MDAs. So this recruitment waivers that MDAs get to enjoy, the ministries, departments and agencies, you know, happen to be, I would say, partly to be blamed for the job racketeering that we see in the system. What do you make of this?
Okay, I think we're having problem reaching out to Dr. Theophilos. Are you still there?
Talking about waivers, reps.
Yes, job racketeering in the system and how these recruitment waivers that MDAs get to enjoy. Do you see this as part of the problem? Because the House of Representatives investigating this issue is threatening that, look, perhaps we should halt this recruitment waivers get to enjoy. Okay, it appears that we have a glitch again.
I don't know what's wrong with the network this morning.
You know, while looking at this story, I kept asking myself, why should we even be talking about recruitment waivers in the first place? You know, just we have this systemic way of allowing certain things to be drivers of nepotism, corruption, and the rest of them. Because, I mean, for a system that operates as an institution, you would expect that when it's time for recruitment, people should be able to apply for jobs and, you know, applicants should be assessed based on their merits and given jobs. But, you know, what happens in most cases, like we've seen time and again, is that the government institutions hardly even advertise, you know, for vacancies. And even if they do, by the time you hear about the announcement or about the vacancy in those organizations, it is to say, well, it's already late, it's already filled up, because guess what? Other people within the system would have brought in others that will come and join in the system. So, and that's how we keep seeing, you know, a particular group or ethnic group dominating, you know, a particular institution of government, and then we continue to see this issue continue like that, and it's a major issue, and I think that it should be considered. I would actually support the House of Reps to go in that direction. I think
I would say sometimes there's misplacement of priority in Nigeria. Take, for instance, one of the agitations that, you know, we have the resident doctors speak about is the direct replacement, one-on-one replacement. And when we got in a conversation with some of the you know, let's say the president now, or the top officials of the resident doctors, one of the things they talked about, one-on-one replacement. It takes, like, when a doctor leaves, or due to brain drain or due to search for greener pastures, leave the country, it takes about 2 months for you to get a doctor replaced. And you know how, you know, we're suffering or having the challenges of replacement of doctors, and even having doctors who can cater for the sick people in the country. So imagine where you have waivers to these people, and they can actually have this one-on-one replacement. If a doctor leaves, maybe in a space of 1 week or 2 weeks, we have this. So I think those are the places we should be giving priorities and not MDAs. I know these things work differently, but I think we should come together and rejig some of the laws and some of these things that we attach to the MDAs and the works fair in the country. Imagine we're talking about if things go wrong in the civil service and all that. Look at the penalty. That's one of the things that we talked about. You know, we have to repeal some of these laws. We have to go back, change some of these laws, change some of the things, get them right, and that's how to move. Because if we continue to operate with things that have been there for the past 50 years, 100 years, how do we move as a nation? I think that's something that this administration needs to really come together, draw up a roadmap, a short-term a goal that can achieve, or, you know, put this on a road to success and achieve it in the shortest possible time.
Yes, and I find that no matter how well-intentioned certain policies are, you know, in our system, most times you find that it's been abused in some way, and Nigerians find a way to just abuse that, you know, even though it is well-intentioned, it is aimed at getting the best and all that. So that's a huge problem. And then also, perhaps you may say, closely related to that is the story we're hearing about the Police Service Commission retires 4 DIGs for not leaving after Egbetokun's appointment. So that also is another story for me of interest that, you know, the Police Service Commission actually had to show the way out to the DIGs before they would leave. Now, the argument that the Police Service Commission is making, or the submission they're making, is that they had to resort to compulsory retirement for these DIGs because after the appointment of the new IGP of police, the acting IGP, who is junior to those DIGs, by virtue of its, you know, tradition, I don't know whether it is by virtue of the act establishing the Nigerian police, or just a, you know, a norm that has come to be adopted in the services. I know even in the military, we hear each time
controversy, chief of army staff,
an appointment is made, other generals who are, you know, ahead are asked to leave and all that. That is also something to look at. I know that lawyers have made arguments several times, you know, about the constitutionality of this, whether it has to be so and so on. So does it mean that if you are not, you are not due for retirement, right?
You know,
and then you just have to retire because your junior is now, you know, your superior.
Speaking about all of this, you know, it has to do with the way things are arranged. You know, the security front or the security outfits that you see has to do with a lot of giving of command, and people's lives depend on all of this. I think that, you know, if we have a junior, if not even in the military, it happens in other sphere where we have somebody who is maybe not up to the ranks of the people who are ahead, and they feel that that person is capable, is the qualified person to man the position of overseeing whatever happens in such agency. I think there'll be like a clash of interest, and there will be like succumbing to your seniors because these people are there before you. And if they don't go, you might actually see that godfatherism or giving of others, like, I've been here before you. Though it's not official, but it can happen to anyone. So to instill discipline, I think they have to go, even as much as some people still find it difficult to understand what happens in these agencies and then the security, some of these security outfits. So let's see how this pan out.
But they have to be
forward.
asked to go. That's the thing. I mean, I'm like, did anyone have to tell you that this is what you should do? I mean, given that this is the new arrangement, this is the new structure.
You know, I'm an advocate of leave the stage while the ovation is still high. If I were in their shoes, probably when I see that, you know, this person has been put ahead of me, and some people might want to stay, but I feel like this is the time to go. You don't have to be told. You just have to go. I think a simple resignation would have done that very quite well.
Okay, well, another story, briefly, if we may touch on that, is on the Guardian newspaper, where we see OAU, that's, I believe, Obafemi Awolowo University, banning hugging, sitting on laps, skimpy dresses, tattoos, others on campus. Quite an interesting story for young people who are full of energy, you know, and sometimes exuberance is, you know, would lead them into doing certain things. I don't know how, you know, they are going to be implementing this or responding. That's the school management now, how they will be implementing these things and how the students themselves will be responding to some of these policies. But it remains to be seen. But I foresee that perhaps this is to instill some kind of discipline and morality in the students, which is in order. And so, but it remains to be seen how the students will react to this.
All right, this is a very, very broad topic, and when we start this conversation, of course, time will not allow us. I think I will just reserve my comment. Maybe some other time we could talk about this before going into major stories of the day. But, you know, it's for discipline, and I support it 100%.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we are unable to get Dr. Theophilus Abba back to join us to get his own thoughts on some of these stories. But this is where we end the discussion on the program today. In case you've missed, you can always catch up across all our social media platforms and also on our YouTube live stream. And I hope that you don't make it a habit to always be on the catch up, because for people who are always joining the show late, I always say this, and I hope that, you know, you make out time to join us when the show starts at 8 a.m. Every morning. My name is Ayuba Ilya.
It's been an interesting journey this morning on Daybreak. We hope to see you join us tomorrow, same time, same station. And my name is Martia Umar. Have a wonderful day.